people are going to retain 10 to 20%, if that, of the content you're going to provide. What you do need to provide are little mile markers in a way. As long as they remember those markers, they can always go back and reference this, which goes back into sort of the enablement move or product marketing move of, can they find these artifacts or slides or content that you shared easily?
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest edition of Vision to Vibe, the show where we get inside the creative minds of leaders who are shaping the future of B2B marketing and sales, I might add, and sales. And this episode proves that out more than most, as I'm here with my friend and former colleague of the last couple of years, David Kim. David, thank you so much for joining me here.
Absolutely, Nick. Super excited to be here and chat with you about SKO and all the other things.
That's right. We got a good story to tell about some work that we did on that front. This is SKO season, where you and I are recording this in late January. Some companies have just finished up their fiscal year. Some companies are well into it, but still needed to get the programming underway for the SKO. So we're going to talk about David's vision and how together we pulled off that vibe for some really remarkable sales kickoff content experience for a blue chip brand at the time, for Drift and that whole team. It was one for the history books for sure. But I want, David, for you to take us back because you've moved through major roles. I think it'll be interesting for people who are listening today. If you've ever been in sales, if you've ever been in sales enablement, if you've worked with sales enablement, if you've worked in product marketing before, you will be interested in David's journey a little bit. And maybe it's similar to your own, maybe it's different. But David, you moved through major roles at Marketo, at Demandbase, at Drift, Marketo becoming Adobe. So can you just tell us a bit about your story of how your career evolved and how your approach to sales productivity kind of grew and matured and changed along the way going into the SKO?
Absolutely. Start off, out of college, trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And then, long story short, is I ended up at a company called ConnectWise down in Tampa, Florida, as a SDR. It's the first time I was cutting teeth, but did not think sales was for me. It was too stressful. I was in like a bridge program trying to become an executive and did pretty good. So 1 quarter monitoring. And first month, amazing. Second month, third month, not so amazing.
Sales, you were like, this is going to be tough?
Yeah, correct. It was very stressful, right? And then became a solutions consultant at Marketo, got in there through a referral, which was great. And it fit me really well. It was still, the conversations that I was having with customers, I always loved. The fact that I was a product expert for the sellers was something that I really enjoyed because it's something that I could work on in terms of becoming really good at and proficient at.
Yeah, what year was this? Back, take us like to what?
This is 2013, 2014, it's almost, yeah.
So it was Marketo was not yet a part of Adobe at the time?
No, it was not. Marketo was a public company at the time.
That's right. Taking on HubSpot where I was. So you were 2013, you were slinging Marketo and we were calling you the enemy,
Absolutely.
Definitely had some features that we wished we had, those campaign tokens. Shout out to the campaign tokens. We're like, okay, respect, but
hey, it's the same thing for HubSpot. Dude.
And you're a solutions consultant over at Marketo for a little while.
Yep. And that's where I met my mentor, Mark Siciliano, who we just coincidentally met again at a next company, which was Demandbase. So to your point, PE firm came into Adobe, things started to change. Little inclination of being, acquired by another bigger company was another thing that we were kind of hearing for the rumbles.
Yeah.
And it was the right move for Marketo.
Some uncertainty on the horizon with those transitions. We both lived through.
Correct. Yeah. For my career path, essentially, everything changed and now there's new management, everyone left. And I was like, all right, I gotta find a new opportunity here. I went to Demandbase. Truthfully, it was because my wife now, person I was dating at the time, also who was at Marketo, decided to move to Demandbase. I was like, why not? I'll go there too. Yeah, it's initially why I moved and then realized my mentor, Mark, who was I knew at Marketo, but we didn't really work together because he was in sales enablement and I was in solution consulting. And I met him again at Demandbase. He started a couple months before I did. And I was a SC there, but Mark and I always, kind of chatted and kept a relationship. And at some point I was kind of describing how I love solution consulting, but I just don't know where that path is going to lead me to. I want to play more of a strategic role. I want to be more impactful for the company instead of just a few reps, right? And that opened the door for me to join his team. And his, basic thing was, hey, I was a solution consultant before also, which I knew, which is I think why we got along really well. So one thing I know is sales enablement does play a very strategic role because you're working with the entire sales team. You're working with cross-functionally with product marketing team, with the product team, with the engineering team, the marketing team. There's a lot you can't do in a sales enablement role. So
Mark was leading up sales enablement, to be clear, at Demandbase.
correct. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Mark was the head of sales enablement at Demandbase. And in a way, Mark, I think knew me really well, better than I knew myself, because it was really fun working with him. He let me do a lot of things that I wanted to try out and do. And Sales Kickoff was definitely one of those things. I've always liked capturing attention, being on stage, making little shorts or movies to make, people laugh and having that comedic relief or moments in a serious things. So it's not so boring in a way, right?
Yeah.
And
I mean, salespeople, let's be honest, all should have somewhat of a love of that. Oftentimes there's an element of public speaking and presenting. There's an element of sort of engaging, connecting, and moving people. Yeah. So you want to do that at scale.
Yeah. And Mark was definitely all about it too. He was definitely
he is a showman,
guy.
Yeah.
He definitely is.
To give away the plot, we all ended up working together with Mark on that SKO. But yes, he got that.
Yeah. Had a lot of fun at Demandbase. Yeah. And then he went to Drift and I followed him. I was just like, hey, I really want to keep working with you. I went to Drift. And that's to speak in a way, one, my journey, but two, also like at Marketo, I've seen an SKO that was held at a, Crown Plaza Hotel in San Francisco, right next to the SFO airport, right? I've had one after the P firm came in, Vista. We had one in Vegas. That was like the largest, wildest one at like 8 a.m. There were like fire dancers coming in. I'm like, talk about energy on a day one, like, right? And our new CEO came up with like, it wasn't like Steve Ballmer from Microsoft days, but it was high energy, but really good high energy. And Demandbase also did a great job with SKOs. Demandbase was really focused on celebrating and kind of paying back to the employees. So anyone who was coming to SKO had a really nice room. You could bring your family as long as they're not going to bother you during the SKO time. So there's a lot that was happening at Demandbase.
President's Club, almost.
Yeah. It was really good.
Nice touch.
Right. And that one, Mark and I had a lot of fun with our whole team. We could really go wild with our creativity. So it was really fun.
Well, I didn't know this about you, David. I'm glad you're telling us all this because you've had a couple of different SKOs under your belt before you and I started working together. And ours was almost entirely digital, some slight hybrid there, in-person stuff, but we got to do that, on the tail end of the pandemic.
It was a very different one for me, which is what you're alluding to, which is that it was during the COVID time. We had to do it all full digital first time. And then the second time you and I were doing it, it was a hybrid, right? Full digital, I just couldn't even wrap my head around it because like the energy you get from the stage and like the way you can engage the crowd, it's just a different beast.
So that was a challenge you folks faced. You and Mark Siciliano are now sitting down saying, we're in the heart of the pandemic. We knew that nobody's going to be gathering in groups at all. That's a huge no-no, but we have to rally this team. For the first time, both you and him have no in-person opportunities, group gathering opportunities at your disposal. Was that probably the biggest challenge or anything else you were facing?
That was probably the biggest challenge. Outside of that, when we think about SKO just in general, if we can take a moment to think about like the structure of SKO, right? Mm-hmm. Like a lot of times you got to schedule it out. How much time do we have? Who do we want to bring to speak? So there's a lot of management happening in terms of like, this is a show. It's a program. We have 1 day, 1.5 day, 2 days usually, right? Of show that we can't put out. It starts at 8 a.m. usually. It goes till 4 or 5 p.m. It's an 8 to 9 hour complete in a room. You got to make it engaging. You got to make people talk about it and have high energy or at least keep them interested. I mean, if, Christopher Nolan's getting in trouble for 3.5 hour movie, how am I going to get people for 8-9 hours engaged in the same topic, which is our company, right?
This is a lot of overhead that you've stopped selling. You've stopped them doing anything else but paying attention to the program you've put on. You got to make sure there's a strong ROI for all that.
Right.
Yeah, so, I'm glad you're doing this, David. Yeah, take us through the structure of a good SKO like you're doing, and then also talk about what are some of the objectives you're trying to design for in these.
That I had to learn a lot because initially I was like, what is the purpose of the SKO? Right? It's just to get people to get together and party, right? In a way, like SKOs, usually there's a lot of drinking involved, right? Yeah. And the social element is really important, right? Yeah. People do need to get together. Sellers do need to get together. And there's a lot of things that we get filled in our cup by being around each other and talking to each other about successes and hardships and how do we going to overcome it and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That's what I've learned a lot in terms of how to run a good SKO is that at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. People are going to retain 10 to 20%, if that, of the content you're going to provide. What you do need to provide are little mile markers in a way. As long as they remember those markers, they can always go back and reference this, which goes back into sort of the enablement move or product marketing move of, can they find these artifacts or slides or content that you shared easily? If you have those set up, then the actual event itself, you got to treat it as an event. These people are coming here. We're spending a lot of money for anywhere from 8 to 16 hours of these people, no distractions. So what are we going to do during those times? If we pack it in with all the content, it's an information overload. It's so boring. It's hey, I can't even retain these. So the most important thing is alignment, number one. What's the leadership expectations and what is the individual contributor expectations, right? And we got to find a good middle ground in terms of, hey, there's an agenda we got to lead. There's a goal we got to lead, but we got to make sure we show the appreciation for all the hard work, because it is very stressful, right? Your livelihoods depending on these leads that's coming in, the leads that you're chasing, the deals that you're chasing and closing. So how do we make sure that the reps feel appreciated for all the hard work they did for a year and show you do deserve to get on the stage and get a trophy and have those recognitions, because they're very, very important at this very competitive role, while talking about the importance of this year's goal and getting them hyped up, getting the sellers hyped up with what's to come this year, right? Working at multiple companies, it really is different per company depending on what the journey is of that brand or company that they're going through that specific year. So what happened last year? What's going to happen this year? What are we thinking about next year already, right? Because that's how the leaders think. So how do we align on those, find the main key points to it, and build out those schedule where, one, again, it's not overwhelming, two, it's engaging, and three, it's memorable. And when they leave, they say, we had a great time, got a lot of good information. I'm hyped up for this whole year, where I'm going to press gas and just go this year and sell the crap out of this thing. Those are the three things we're trying to accomplish at SKO.
So it's a launch event. You said it's an event where you're sort of launching the goals for the year for the company. You're launching the key themes and objectives that you want everyone to align around. And you're going to use all the aspects of human motivation to get that done. Recognition, bringing the group together, social proof, competitiveness, inspirational stories, entertainment, as well as information, anticipation, excitement, confidence building, all those pieces, so that you can truly launch this agenda of things that you and your enablement team, it sounds like, are going to be reinforcing after that.
Correct.
You want them to sort of say, oh, right, you talked about that at the beginning of the year. Here it comes now.
Exactly.
I'm ready for it. And I'm grateful for it, because you set it up and you got me hyped for it.
Probably. Right. Yep, exactly.
Tough to pull off, like you said, David, because it's different in every company. There's a slightly different alchemy or brew you got to deal with. So take us back now to, all right, Mark and I, at least we've worked together and done this a couple of times, but now we have to do it all digital. And how are we going to create that feeling? I honestly, David, it is not easy. And I hope people are leading in who's ever, like I do all the time, try to think about how can I make this thing, which is going to happen between screens and cameras out of people's homes, most likely, if not like a Starbucks or whatever, and make it feel like we all just had a vibe, like we are all experiencing something together. Because I want to tell people, you guys pulled that off with a couple of some serendipity, some cool showmanship things. There was music. So just take us through again the journey of how are we going to do this screen to screen and what the planning was like.
Yeah. A lot of our conversation was, how do we make sure, because we can't force people to have camera on for 8 to 9 hours. You know what I mean? And it wasn't even 8 hours when we realized it was going to be all digital, and we have to shorten it a bit. You just have to, right?
Yeah.
And
Screen
with
fatigue.
that said, right.
Yeah.
But again, I like to use movie analogy, which is what worked out well with the team. What is something that you watch where you're like, oh my gosh, I have a bathroom break. I got to run real fast because I don't want to miss it. Because you can't force people to be on there, turn on the camera. It's more so you got to have the content that's so great. People want to stay in their seat. They want to come back. They don't want to miss it. So to your point, that's where I've also learned by watching my team and Mark, just ask them, hey, what would make them engaging? Something that was really good
So
was
you pulled
also
the team a little bit. You brought in,
Correct.
you pulled the leadership of the sales team. What would make your people psyched up and got a sense of what people be interested in? And like you said, you got a bit of some showmanship bent. And I know Mark, he has an appreciation of music like we do. So I'm sure he was thinking of that as well. How can we make sure we use the, music, sound, what can come out of the speakers to engage people?
Yeah, it was also at the time, Hamilton was really big.
Yes.
So we used an element of Hamilton. We effectively made a scene from Hamilton.
That's when it came out on Disney Plus.
Shot.
That was
Correct. Yes,
a moment
correct.
in
You're
time.
right. You're right.
Me,
Sorry.
for my family,
Yep.
it was
Yep.
like the depths of the pandemic.
Mark actually asked somebody that he knows actually made a version of I'm Not Throwing Away My Shot with Drift relevant lyrics but it was more like an R&B tune. It was awesome. But those were also
Drift brand was
used
going
during
gangbusters at the time. Huge marketing, just a lot of stewardship and passion around the Drift brand, and we wanted to be edgy. Like it just had like just some real spark to it, and I think it pushed people like Mark to go, all right, let's continue to express this and find ways we can interpret this, and put a rap into it, like into the sales kickoff. Blended in.
And those were all great elements also in terms of, because it was all digital, using that in a break time, for example. So that's what I mean by like keeping them engaged and keeping them wanting to come back. Hey, there's music playing right now. What's going on? I don't know this music. So we would do these things without actually giving anyone a prompt or a heads up, just so, because those aren't really pertinent SKO things. These are the attention grabbers, or the things that we're trying to get people come back.
Yes,
right?
Little Easter egg, bits of anticipation.
Exactly.
If they did this thing a couple hours ago, what's coming up next?
Right.
Smart.
Right.
That's not something that everybody says has to go into the SKO brew. But are you saying that's always been something that you and Mark have striven for, and or was it more important in the virtual environment?
Definitely more important for the virtual event. Let's put it that way. That is why I'm bringing it up. And what I want to kind of double down on is the fact that it was very apparent that it was more needed for full digital or even for hybrid approach. Because again, when you're with people, when you're in a physical environment together, it's much easier. They can have a quick side chat. It's different than just slacking somebody in the back and then your brain going like, all right, I'm not paying attention to this anymore and leaving, right?
Yeah.
So it's a big
Even
part
though, I don't know if it was the same for those of you listening at your companies, but at Drift, especially with everybody being completely virtual, our chat threads in these group gatherings were very vibrant, very lively.
Correct.
I felt like it was almost a new form of comedy was being forged in terms of timing of when to drop certain comments, thumbs up, or whatever. I remember just like laughing almost like with tears in my eyes sometimes. So funny, like some of the things that people would just type into the Zoom chat. So there was that element of how can I get the chat blowing up? You know, was the new applause, the new standing ovation, if you will. Yeah.
I want to add the fact that MC also is very important. I hope this is okay. Because Nick, I know you were the MC, and we specifically chose you to be the MC because we could tell that you liked doing MC-esque things and hosting, and you had a good mic, and you had this energy, and like
right. And I'll bring up the context was I was on the content and community team for Drift, so I was already doing things which were like partner enablement or customer enablement and producing content and certification content for our ecosystem. So I was also a little bit on that radar. And then I ended up, like you said, David, volunteering for some of the more into-many stuff that Drift needed someone to kind of MC, DJ, anchor, or facilitate. I'd say I became a bit of a go-to. But you and Mark really noticed my budding interest in that. And you needed it. You had all the music that you wanted to have the hype music. You wanted to have some of these videos play throughout the day. You needed someone to kind of jockey that.
Right. So having like a run of show built out, going through those, again, it's just like running a show, right? You just have to have these things buttoned up. People in the background, even in the foreground, you have to know what's going on at all times, right? And you need somebody who essentially is like a coordinator, somebody who's in the background, who's like making sure everything is going correctly for that specific event, or event coordinator, I should say.
Well, and the run of show, just in case for those of the uninitiated here who haven't been around event planning or anything like that, is a spreadsheet that David and his team put together working with the sales team on this is what the first minute's going to be. And if the screen changes or the speaker changes or if some sound needs to be played or a video to be played or some words are to be said, there were blanks and slots for each of that with a timeline for each of that, right, David? So then you knew how is the 3.5 precious hours you've got going to really roll out. When's the break going to be? Are we behind schedule? Are we off schedule? And everybody could have that. There was at least 4 or 5 people at least who had that sheet open at all times.
Exactly. Right. But going back to the MC real quick, the importance of MC is something I wanted to talk about, right? A couple other companies that I've been at, I was promoted into the role where it was more normal. I just had a lot more trust and confidence from the sellers. Right. I was a solution consultant. They worked with me. They'd come to me for a lot of questions. So I had what we would call a street cred in a way. Right.
You were one of them. Promoted up.
But Drift, I joined as a sales productivity, sales enablement person. Right. So did Mark. So when you're in a situation like that, it is also a little bit hard to tell sellers who's been around for 3-5 years to tell them what to do. And there's nothing bad about that. I think it's a normal human reaction. It's like they've gone through, these people are in the trenches. Somebody's on the front line of this battle. And you just show up and like, hey, let me tell you how to run this. Like, dude, been here for 3 months. What are you talking about?
You have to show them, them.
Yeah. Right. But it's not just that. It was, and I realized when you plan an SKO, this happens a lot. when that happens, it's truly finding somebody, again, like you, who can MC and have, I think MC is like Master of Ceremony is
Yes.
what it stands for, right?
It really is, yeah.
I grew up in Korea and somebody told me it's called the mover of crowds. And I thought that's what it was for the longest time.
I like that too.
Right?
Yes.
So in my head, I was like, oh, we definitely need an MC because it's like, I can't move them. I don't have the trust built out with them. But the beauty of an MC is it is a third party. This is why events have hosts, like, Emmy or Grammy, whatever it is, like Oscars, wherever there's like a ceremony, there is somebody who's emceeing. That person is, in a way,
guide.
The first experience. Yep. So that MC is such
I would
an
add,
important
I just think
role.
of it, I think of it as an advocate for the audience. It's like the audience's rep on the stage.
Yeah. And you did a really good job reading the room digitally because it's much easier in a crowd. It's like, oh, that side is not going well. Like they definitely you got to bring them together, and that's what MCs do well. It's so hard. So many people have their screens up, screens not up, cameras off. Somebody's talking, somebody's not talking, somebody's commenting, somebody's not commenting. But I just know that you did a really good job following the run of show, adding a couple different things, and that was the job of the MC. Right?
When you have the experience, you're able to. I already had the tech savviness, like you mentioned, coming in. You did a ton of this stuff at HubSpot Academy, the Drift content and community team. We were doing this type of thing all the time, and also having a DJ background, you just kind of know how crowds are going to react. And let's never forget the power of music. When you have good
100%
good music in the background, and you get somebody a walkout track and stuff like that, that can just make all the difference. If it was just, and here comes David Kim. Clap, clap, or in this case, click, 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 click. Like, that's not great, but it's David Kim, or anything,
100%.
And it's like the track
100%.
you picked, and then people are like, oh, that's a vibe. They're saying that in the chat. It's just, it's the little things. But you guys did some interesting stuff. Take us to one of these kind of moments you're going to try to create at the end for one of the top reps. You want to recognize, talk about how important recognition is and to create those very memorable moments. Tell us about one that you guys set up to create and how it even had a twist that you didn't anticipate that made it even more memorable for all of us as we kind of adjusted to
so that year, when we're doing all digital, the prize award, I should say, for the sales rep of the year was a brand new Rolex. And this gentleman, Alex, was going to win it. And just happened to, co-founder was down there in Florida. Alex was in Florida. And we planned it out where we were going to send it to him. But then since the co-founder was there and we chatted with him, he's like, no, I can drive it to him. So we planned it out where we're going to drive the gift to him. This was a fun moment because I knew it was going to happen, but we weren't really sure how we were going to execute it. Not only that, the co-founder went to his house, knocked on the door, and he was not home.
No, he was taking that portion of the SKO at the end of the day, and he was taking it from a friend's house, and then they were going to go out because there was no way we all weren't going to go out.
Pretty sure they're at a beer garden already.
I mean, and to be fair, that's what a lot of people were all going to go do afterwards. And some Drift folks were in certain cities, and they're going to safely get together outside and stuff. That was still okay at the time. So Alex, the rep, was supposed to get the watch. Is not there. We're all watching. Hundreds of us logged in, and I know that we're supposed to have this great surprise moment. Oh, we're expecting Alex to blow his mind. The founder's at his front door, and we're all going to watch it because he's got his mobile phone and stuff ready to go, and he's just not there.
It was kind of like Truman Show. We're like, so are you there? And the founder was like, he's not home. And we're like, what? It's like, he's not home.
Yes.
So guys, why I'm just saying he's at it. And
I'm told to call for time. I'm just playing some music, and there's a little bit of silence going on the Zoom.
This is like, I'm at this beer garden, and our co-founder, oh gosh, he's such a great guy. He was just driving in his car. He's like, I'm on my way.
I'm on my way.
You started playing, I think either Bad Boys and
it was AC/DC Thunder. So it's like, and he's just got the phone sitting in the console. He's not looking at it, and he's just gunning it down the road. So
I'm pretty sure you had a soundbite also, and it was at some point there was like a car chasing or like a police siren. And I was like, is that real?
And people are freaking out in the chat. They're loving it because they're just watching from the phone through the console and just see the co-founder's chin basically as he's zipping through. And then they finally see each other's hugging, and we're all again blowing up in the chat. And he takes us off mute, and you can hear, and we all go off mute. We're all bah! Oh man, because that's what, and that was. I think that was more memorable than
100%.
Anything you could have planned.
100%.
And anything that could have happened in person. And I think everybody was starving for this sort of 3D in real life experience. And by that point, I just remember being like, this is what we are starving for. And somehow it happened.
Right.
but everyone was willing to
Right.
sort of improv, I think a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what you have to be willing to do is everybody goes,
100%.
okay, we've got the whole audience in front of us. How are we
Right.
going to adjust? And as soon as the music came on, it then became like a chase scene almost or something
Exactly.
like that.
Exactly.
And we're all like rooting the co-founder on. Like, here we go. Here we go. Oh, it was great. So
It
I
was
just wanted
awesome.
folks to know that, like, I mean, have you found there's always a little bit of something like that in a lot of the SKOs you've done, David, whether they were in person or hybrid, that there's a bit of
Always.
serendipity, there's a bit
Always.
of the unplanned, you got to improvise?
And yeah, 100%. And as somebody who did improv comedy, I feel like I should be better at this. But when things don't go to plan, I usually freak out because it's like I have in my mind how this perfect show should run. And we've talked about this for months, for weeks. We've done dry runs. Has to run the right way. But it's an event. Something's going to go wrong. But what was good was an SKO is not an event that people paid to come to see.
Yeah.
In a way, it's a bit of a reverse where like I have to go to these things.
Right.
But
And
when
they're
those
part of it. Like we're
Right,
all
exactly.
communing. It's our thing. It's not,
Right.
this is the
Exactly.
the troubadours of SKO who come and then
Yeah.
leave. These are your people trying to help you
Yeah.
get ready to hit your number this year. Right.
Exactly.
So I think there's a co-conspiracy a little bit on behalf of the audience.
And if I can kind of touch very beginning of it one more time, which is like, hey, how do we actually even plan this thing?
Please.
That talking to the leadership and talking to individual contributors, right? It doesn't have to be something grand. It can be just like a simple 5-question form where you're just asking, like, what do you want to see and hear about? When they get to provide feedback and they feel like they're heard, that's already first level done. They're like, okay, I provided my feedback. I want to hear about these things. We're actually covering those. A lot of times people don't want to do negative stories at the SKO. They just want to talk about win stories. But reps are also starving for loss stories just because, however, if you all lean in, it's something that they do want to talk about because it happens all day long and they want to know why it's happening. And especially if everyone is digital, like the company that I'm at, we're fully digital, right? And during COVID, that was the same thing. Everything was digital.
More and more so
everyone
nowadays.
was separated, right? They crave for those moments. They get the highlights. They get the good things, but we're also used to that from like social media in a way. We all see these curated, manicured, very perfect things all the time. But we all know at the same time, things break all the time. Things don't go the way you want it to. We're going to lose deals if you're in sales. So it's, I think, good to actually, to your point, hey, we're all in this together. We're doing this event for a day, day and a half, 2 days. We're going to actually uncover things that we didn't do well that we can do better and how we're going to get there, things that we're planning on this year and how we're going to get there and how we're going to actually do this together. If we have those energetic moment in a way, that's a successful SKO. That's what SKO is all about.
And David, I think that's why it's good to have a collaboration between you leading up the sales enablement and those goals, and then me thinking about the content, the audience interaction,
100%.
how that's going to roll out, because there's a reason you like the improv comedy, which is more done as a team versus like stand-up comedy, you're up there
Right.
alone. Together, we can take care of the unexpected or help sort of synthesize the different competing goals of the different stakeholders to what the audience is really going to find entertaining and engaging. And therefore, they'll actually listen and be educated to follow through. So
Exactly.
talking about following through, can you close us out, David, with what do you look for on some of the impacts? If you recall, we're not talking about specifics here in terms of dollars and cents or anything, but like what are some of the things that you should typically look for an impact from SKO? And what are some of the things that you were proud to see after pulling off an SKO like you did at Drift that moved needle-wise? What do you look for, in the short term, in the long term, feedback, things like that?
Surveys are usually the first thing that we go for just to get the immediate feedback afterwards, which is good. But as somebody who's organizing this, or if you're in enablement, for example, or product marketing, whichever one may be, you should really think about what is the impact it's going to make throughout this year, right? What is the goal that we talked about? Why do we do this SKO in this way? What are some of the things, goals, and visions that we shared? Are those tracking, and how do we find a leading and lagging indicator for these from the sellers, right? So for example, if we knew pipeline was an issue and we had a lot of focus on pipeline, reps know how to build pipeline, or at least they've been told how to make pipelines so many times over the years. So it's kind of a moot point and it's a waste of time to go there and talk about the best way to do discovery. Unless you're brand new, they just want you to know how to do it at this company, unless you just came up from a different role to become a seller. But most of the times it's just a matter of they need to know what to watch out for, because that's a trap that we're going to fall into throughout the history of this company, right? Or how do you actually manage that, and how do you actually ask the right questions, and what is that leading to? So if you can walk them through that, then it becomes a game in a way for enablement to actually see, did that actually make an impact? So you do need to have systems set up in a way to be able to measure those, even if it's more lagging in a way where it's like, hey, did we actually hit our goal this quarter and next quarter? Do we have enough pipeline for next quarter? you got to continue to get feedback from first-line managers and individual contributors. Are you still
How are we
struggling?
doing on the
What are
competitive
numbers looking?
takeout front? What about average deal cycles, if that was an issue before, and if you put a lot of content and some plays towards that?
Right.
And also, do people actually certify in any of the training that you do afterwards, or like the certification you do, right? You do some stuff like in Sales Hood or whatever.
Yeah, certifications are a good way too. Yeah. More and more though, it's a fine balance of making them do things versus making them want to do things in a way. But yeah, if there's something that's mandated, that's, for example, hey, new products coming out, we do need to make sure that everyone actually knows what this new product is, the new feature that developed. We got to get certified on those.
In our final moments, David, I mean, again, we're in the heart of SKO season. If you could break down one tip, again, people aren't going to remember more than 20% of what we even covered here today, as we know. What would be a key takeaway, a fundamental thing that you think about going into an SKO that you'd hope the next person would also think about this year?
Quote I was been told many, many times, which I still do live by, which is people don't remember what you said, but people remember how you made them feel, right? SKO is so true for that. Because again, so many hours, different content, all these different people in a Zoom room, in a real room, doesn't really matter. There's a lot going on. If they feel excited and happy for this year to start and how much money they're going to make this year, that's goal accomplished for SKO. Everything leads from that, because last thing you want is throw an SKO and it was dry and it was like, yeah, it was another SKO. We got super drunk and it was great. And that's all they remember is not that great. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And I've said that as I've studied this more and more through the jobs that I've had when you and I worked on this, but then also now as a consultant, as we needed to create a system to do this, like as a service predictably, is I believe you get that excitement from people feeling engaged. Like what you're really talking
100%.
about is, I want to do something. You don't want people just to say, that was so fun. I had such a great memory at that hotel or on that Zoom. It's like, I can't wait for tomorrow. I'm engaged. I'm down for this team. I'm down for this cause. And that comes from, how do you get that? And you've been talking about this whole time is there's an element of entertainment, the unexpected, the building anticipation, showing them that you care, tapping into the zeitgeist of the moment, showing people you understand their hopes and feelings, embracing the drama of the ups and downs. That's all entertainment. That makes them go, oh. And then you have the education alignment with the leaders around the goals. What's the product? What are the key themes? What are we shooting for? How will you get there? Where are the tools? You have both those things come together in the right mix and alchemy. And you and I worked on that, the plan, and then executing in real time. That's how you get engagement. And when you get that engagement, then you get impact, which is what we are all hoping for, where those needles start to jump that David was talking about. So what a great journey and experience. Thank you so much, David, for sharing this great memory with everybody. I thought it was worth sharing. I appreciate you doing that. And I look forward to us teaming up in future ways that we can educate and engage other sellers in the future, man.
Sounds awesome. Thanks, Nick.